So, welcome everyone to another Montessori Lives, conversations with notable Montessorians. And tonight I'm speaking with Pip Cleaves. She is Chief Learning Architect at Global Village Learning in New Gisborne, right? Is it New Gisborne or
Yeah,
in
New Gisborne. Yeah.
Victoria?
Yep.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, Pip and her colleague Peter Hutton stepped in to take over a struggling Gisborne Montessori school. And since then, they've successfully stabilized and revitalized the school. And one of the distinctive aspects of Pip's approach has been the strategic use of artificial intelligence to improve school operations and support student learning, something that is often seen as controversial in Montessori circles. So, in this conversation, we'll explore how a Montessori school can turn around declining enrollments while staying faithful to Montessori principles. And also, we'll look at how emerging technologies like AI can be used in ways that support rather than undermine Montessori education. So, Pip, welcome. And could you start by telling us a little bit about your background and how you came to your role as Chief Learning Architect at Global Village Learning?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mark, and Montessori community. It's nice to be here. My role, I guess, my journey into GVL, what's now called Global Village Learning, was Gisborne Montessori School, is kind of it's not typical. So I have a very deep knowledge previous to education. I was a translator in the Japanese world. So I needed at one point to do some career changing, so stepped into Japanese teaching. And I very soon realized that after being a translator, teaching Japanese wasn't that hard a skill level for me at the high school age. So, a high school sort of level. So, I stepped into doing other things in the school, and technology was one of those. I was really keen that as my young people explored the Japanese cultural world, that we weren't just doing booklets around kimonos and temples, that we were actually looking into how do the youth of Japan live and breathe, and what's the cultural space and the beauty of Japanese world that's this modern space, but it's also a very traditional space. So I use technology a lot in those early formative years of teaching. And I did a lot of projects, external work in to my classroom around action-based learning and research, action-based research. And that kind of put the DNA together for me to step into a world of project-based learning as a core for how I do teaching and learning in my classroom. Uh, I was also teaching Japanese through multiple venues, teach up in the Hunter Valley area of New South Wales, and I was teaching VCE level Japanese to two schools via video conferencing in oh gosh, it would have been about 2007, 8, so quite early in that space when whiteboards were just all coming out. And somebody asked me to come and work for regional team teaching people how to use video conferencing and whiteboards. And then that rolled into the great laptop rollout from Uncle Kevin Rudd. So we had the digital education revolution. So I worked in, first of all, the regional team doing the professional development and integration within teaching and learning of the laptops. And I then stepped into the state office role, so working in the core state team in New South Wales Education. And during that time, I made a whole bunch of connections with enterprises such as Microsoft and Adobe, and I wasn't quite ready to go back to school when the funding was cut from that project. So I stepped into consultancy and I worked for Microsoft and Adobe and myself as a consultant around technology integration. And during my years in state office, I became a master trainer in a coaching methodology called ICTP coaching. So, underneath that kind of how to use IT was the human side of how can we be support educators to integrate technology, and how can we integrate technology that's in a really authentic way into classrooms. I did work at that point around 21st century learning design and working with Michael Fullan's what's now called the new pedagogies for digital learning. So working to create some Australian 21st century learning designs skills, capabilities with marking like continuums and criteria and all sorts of stuff. And then I kind of went, if I'm talking this stuff, I need to go back to school. So I did. Went back to, I was at that stage in Sydney, so walked into Sydney Secondary College as head teacher teaching and learning and did some more time back in schools before stepping out again. And this time I still worked with the Department of Ed, but as a consultant on a big STEM project, looking at and created probably 100 units of work in the STEM field that are all project-based learning curriculum mapped. And again, supporting educators to use technology in meaningful ways. And then towards the end of that, I got pulled into a role back up in my hometown near Newcastle, across 4 high schools as a deputy principal of innovation and strategic leadership. So working with those 4 schools to innovate and do strategic work. Um, so technology has always been a flavor of mine, but it's about the authentic, it being a tool, one of many, many
Mm.
tools that we have, and how we can use that. And then towards the end of that, when was it? At some point, maybe during COVID or before COVID, um, Peter reached out to me and about 7 other educators, and we used to meet online every week and talk about things that were broken in education, basically, and how we might change them. And that was probably the longest job interview I've ever had, I think. And towards mid 23, he said, "Oh, Pip, I really need you to come and work with me at GMS." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not moving to Victoria, you crazy?" And yeah, eventually I did and packed up my car and drove south. And I kind of, I liken that journey to me driving down the Hume Highway with these flames behind me as I was leaving New South Wales education behind and stepping out of public ed into a small independent school, wondering why am I stepping out of something where I feel, oh, can I make an impact on a lot of kids to somewhere I can make a deep impact on a small amount of young people. So I found myself settled into the Macedon area. And here I am. So my background comes really varied. There's consultancy, there's really deep technology, there's systems. As an autistic person, I love systems and processes, so that ticks my IT box very nicely in admin. And then there's curriculum. I love nothing better than it's kind of like one of my stims, playing with curriculum and making it work when people don't think you can. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm from.
That's quite a pedigree.
Yeah.
And it makes sense of why I remember Peter said, if I'm going to do this project at GMS, I have to have Pip. She's absolutely essential. So, what was it that drew you and Peter to take on the challenge of Gisborne Montessori School when it was
Um,
struggling?
So for Peter, he had been, I'll just talk briefly, Peter. Peter had been at GMS for a year before I got there. So Peter started on April 1, 22, the day before census. I think he often uses that. And he started then and then he pulled me down in August 23. So for Peter, he was had been exploring a model of student-led learning or young people-led learning that he felt that GMS could be a place where he could play that out. And his children attended GMS in its very early years, and he lived 3 minutes down the road from it. So it
Mm.
was a really nice fit for him in terms of where he was at and what he was wanting to do and some of his previous experiences. So Peter, for a year, when he took over the reins as executive director of GMS, it was in about 3 months out of the doors being closed. And so he spent 12 months refocusing the financial aspect of GMS and enabling us to have the bones to grow forward and starting to heal some of the trauma that the community had been through necessary happens when you're at that stage, right? If a school's about to close, there's been trauma. So he worked with the guides until he's like, right, need you to come down and help me with the learning and the systems and all the things. So that's why I started. So my role from the beginning was as a learning architect, to create learning wheel extending through from a hard finish at year six through into the secondary space. So we wanted to play a lot with authentic learning, and my experience in that space meant that we could take some of the Montessori world from those early years and keep the notions and kind of add some of our special sauce into that secondary
Mm.
space. Yeah.
So talk a bit about the change of name from Gisborne
Yeah.
Montessori to Global Village.
Yeah.
Was that about a repudiation of Montessori philosophy?
Look, it was the community because the school became officially a school on the 1st of January, the year 2000. I don't know who signed that document on that day, but that's the official starting date. So it had been in the community for 22 years, and everyone knew GMS as a kindy through to year six school. And
Mm,
we, wanting to push it through to year 12, knew that we were going to need to have a little bit of a brand change for people to see that it would go through to year 12. So Montessori is part of our core, but it's not the only core. We wanted to kind of focus in that future space of technology a little bit more, that sometimes Montessori can sometimes pull back on that, and we wanted to really be there with that. We now have the language to play with it, so it's not a problem at all. And we just wanted a bit of a fresh start for the whole community to draw a red line in what was the past and start looking to the future because of that trauma that had happened around, a community in turmoil. So it gave us a bit of a red line to step over and move forward, as well as extend us through to year 12. And we say that, we are all in the globe together, like every community. So the global village learning is it takes a village for young people to help young people learn, but it also takes young people to create a village. You don't have villages without young people, so that's
mm,
part of our headspace, and we're all under the blue sky and we're all learning together, no matter what age you
mm,
are. So it's not a global as in the whole of the world, it's global as in humans are all learning at the same time and we should all be learning together. And it's
mm,
not just about we go to school for young people to learn, but we go for a whole community to learn.
mm.
Yeah.
So what did you discover were the underlying causes of GMS's declining enrollments? Were the issues mainly internal or were they external perceptions or a combination?
I don't think there were external perceptions. I think a few things. We were in danger of becoming seen as a special school, so a school that
Mm,
really did cater for high needs young people. And that's not something that I think the community was prepared for, in terms of the internal community. There had been some leadership struggles over the previous years. And as you know, to manage a school, a Montessori environment where we want to have as many guides supporting young people as possible, that it takes some skill around your financial accounting to make that happen. And Peter has that skill he's able to bring. But I think so. There's leadership angle, there's some financial angles, like understanding how do you work with different external funding grants and sources in order to get the best efficiency out of them. Things like NCCD.
mm,
How do you use that NCCD funding in a way that that money doesn't just go to that one person, but it goes to the whole community? And how do we ensure that we're compliant with those requirements? It's also the local community thinking that we were taking what we call life raft kids, where we were the last place that they could go to, but that's not who we are. We always need to have independent young people who don't one-to-one support is not something we can offer, and it's something that we vocally discuss that if your child needs one-to-one support, then we are not the community for them. And, we're sorry for that. But that's our kind of line in the sand in that space. So they're kind of some of the areas, I believe, that ended up getting stuck. So it wasn't the Montessori at all. Um, we did also find out later that the free kindergarten program that Victoria government offers was never going to be a place to keep us in the black. So we ended up closing our early learning centre so that we just start from prep. So 4, 5 year olds at GVL now. We don't do the really, really little kids due to that funding requirements and us being in a school. I think a dedicated early learning centre is different than an learning centre that sits inside an operating school.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a common, what you described, I think, is a common situation for many Montessori schools,
Yeah.
especially you talked about, becoming seen as a special school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when a Montessori school is struggling, what do you think are the first indicators that a leader should look for to diagnose the real problem?
That's such a great question. I would be looking at your finances to see what your ratios are and keeping your ratios around 1 to 12, 1 to 14 is a good for guide to young people, not getting too many guides in the room, but not too few guides in the room. Looking at things like what's your balance between, so we wholeheartedly believe that positive adults can have a positive, high quality adults can have a positive impact on young people, whether they have a teaching degree or not. So we employ guides who bring a special source and a level of connection to our young people that's needed, as well as registered teachers, educators, and that can balance out some things as well. In terms of the community, it's are the community joining in things at the school? Are the community a part of their young people's education? If it's a space where they're just dropping their young people and heading out and not wanting that connection, then I think that can be another hotspot to start thinking about. So at GVL, we try and encourage our community to be as much as a part of the school as the guides are. So we don't have for example, we don't have a front office and we don't have an administration space. Our guides go directly to their hubs our parents go directly to the hubs where their young people are at and they work with their guides directly, which means we have
Mm.
more big people coming and going. We ensure everyone signs in with their working with children checks and all those things, but we acknowledge that parents need to come and go, and that's not just at the young people; that's at the big people as well. We have lots of community events where we're all celebrating life together and we're working together. Um, we try and get rid of that notion of school and that drop off and go about your day and then come back. So we're open from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock. We do extended learning programs from 8 till 9 and again from 3:30 till 5 o'clock. And that doesn't add any extra fees to parents. That's just an extended learning program. So that allows parents to see us as part of their support team and part of working through. So we're turning us into a community that supports the community as well
Yeah.
as a school, if that makes sense.
It's so great that philosophy that you've acknowledged and operationalized the idea that it's all about connection.
Mm.
Education is really a relationship. And
Yeah.
I think often, the administration hub is sort of a shield that
Mm. Mm.
stops parents from getting to teachers. We want to
Yeah.
protect teachers from parents. So you've got to go through the front office, and the person in the front office will stop you from going
Yeah.
any further. So that's a
Yeah.
wonderful
No. And
philosophy.
I've never seen a parent come on site raging and, in a way that you think sometimes that barrier, that's what we perceive it's going to stop happening, right? The parents
Yeah.
coming in because never seen that happen. Not
Yeah.
at all. Not at all. So it's in and our young people, whenever there's deliveries, the hub that's closest to that kind of delivery drop off, they'll often welcome the delivery driver and tell them where to put the stuff and things like that. We have phones in each of the hubs with your pick up, no, dial number 2 if you want to speak to this age group. And in the senior space, we often give the phone to the seniors, us
Mm,
young people to answer. Again,
mm,
no one's going to yell at a teenager.
mm.
So it's a really nice way. And they know that, oh, could you just email hello at GVL? I'm unable to support you with that. So they know how to answer it. And it's just, why pay an
Mm.
adult to do something that a young person can do to build skills?
How Montessori.
Yeah, right. And the young people who do that, we also pay them to do that. So we have a program called the Employability Skills Development Program, and young people can apply to do jobs around GVL. And while they're doing that, they apply for the jobs, they interview, they then do some groundwork around what is payroll, what is taxes, what is superannuation, what are my rights as an employer, what is the OHS around a job, all that sort of stuff. So
Mm.
they're learning the skills of being an employee. And then we pay them, I think it's about $11 an hour is the average. Um, so that's kind of cool. So they get paid to do jobs around the school. Um, we were taken to I think it's called the Workplace Inspectorate. We had a person that was a little bit concerned that we might be exploiting young people, so we were able to validate that against legal regulation. And it was really funny during the process. We're like, all right, so if we are indeed fined, what will we need to do? And they're like, well, you're going to have to pay them at the award rate. And I'm like, well, what is the award rate? Well, it'll be about $8 an hour. And I'm like, well, we're paying $11 an hour. So, like, fine, not a problem. But anyway, that was all passed, and that is part of the process. So we have the young people who do cleaning, animal care. They do some administration, cleaning of buses, like washing buses. So anything we would pay an adult to do, we also pay young people to do.
Can you talk about the
Mhm.
first strategic steps that Peter
Yeah.
took in the first 6 months to stabilize GMS?
So Peter's first steps would have been around, again, wasn't there. So connecting with the community and being there for the community and talking openly around the financial struggles they were going through, but building confidence in his experience as a very experienced school principal who had done similar at Templestowe College. It was a school that was about to close, and he was able to turn that around. And his work as a consultant as well. Then we started working on a new strategic plan. So within 6 months, we started building. There had been like a big master plan, a strategic plan that hadn't been implemented. So the community was a little bit like, you keep telling us you're going to do stuff and you're not going to. So Peter and I wanted to implement things pretty quickly. So we knew the way to do that was a staged strategic plan. So before I even started working at GVL, GMS, I was part of that planning process, and we interviewed community, we interviewed young people, we did all that information gathering, created the strategic plan, and then that strategic plan was rolled out at the same time as name change in October 23. Um, and we began straight away to talk the language of the strategic plan. We rebranded in a big way in terms of our online presence, our social presence, our young people, and the language we used as well. So we then, at the same time, I really stepped into creating a learning structure. When I first stepped into the community, I couldn't see the learning happening. And
Mm,
at that stage, I was very new to Montessori. So I was doing some research on what that should look and feel like. I know I grew up through education, hearing about Montessori, and I had this stereotypical image of what it was. And I wasn't seeing it at that point as a way to observe young people and support them to grow in a way that helped them. So
mm,
when I cottoned on to that, what it was, it married beautifully with my ideals around project-based learning being
mm,
authentic learning that are young people decides on a project that they want to do, not an adult in the room going, hey, we're going to make candles and sell them at a market. That's not, to me, authentic learning. Authentic learning is young people finding a problem that exists in the community, be that in their classroom, be that in the school community or the wider community, and then working through a design thinking process to solve that problem and create a product that's then implemented in an authentic way. So that is the core underneath our learning. And I'm sure you can imagine that fits perfectly with the Montessori space of, you know, care for the world around us, care for ourselves.
Mm,
So we started on the learning structures as well. So we changed the how the day ran, and supported guides to do that whilst doing the strategic plan. Yeah.
mm. So, what mindset shifts were necessary in staff to begin turning the school around to this new way
Mm,
of learning?
yeah. I think for our staff, it was letting them know it was going to be okay, that we don't have to change everything all at once, that we can take small steps and do small things. And a reminder, so I truly believe that every educator starts being an educator, chooses to be an educator because they want to make an impact on young people and they want to help young people. And I think we allowed our guides to focus back on the young people and not focus that the system was going to break or that the community was going to close down or that there were problems. We allowed them to focus on helping young people take home those happy memories every day and
Mm,
to help young people feel that they were safe. I think Peter and I in the early days did a lot of work supporting the I always think of a behavior triangle and your top, 5% at the top of the triangle. We did a lot of work supporting those kids at the top so that guides could focus on the bulk in their rooms and that we could just take that stress away from them. Um, it was that making them feel supported and be part of a community and that it was going to be okay, that exciting things were coming.
mm.
Mm.
Were there other decisions or actions that had big impacts on reversing the school's trajectory?
Um, I think extending out into secondary space
Mm,
gave us a new focus, gave us a space to be excited that our young people can stay with us for a whole journey and that our young people are like, you come to GVL and you stay here for life. And I think that gave those people that are in year 4, 5 that are worrying about having to leave the community and head into a new space, it gave them a sense of being able to stay through. And there's something nice about having teenagers in among young people
yeah.
in a community. I really love that some lunch days I sit and look out and we have this kind of this game that they play where it's kind of like tag but on a catch the flag, but on a whole campus kind of thing. And they've made all their own rules and stuff. This is young people. And we have little year 1 kids playing with year 10 kids. And age doesn't matter at GVL. So over time, yeah. So seeing that community extend and grow has helped our guides to feel, I think, like we're part of a bigger community now. It's not just a space that was primary. So, yeah, one of the things we've done as well at GVL is that we've removed year levels from our vocabulary and we've removed, so we have 4 hubs. We have our foundations and play, which is 4 year olds to 8 year olds. We have exploration and discovery, which is 7 year olds to 12 year olds. And then we have entrepreneurship and social impact, which is 11 year olds to 16 year olds. And we have pathways and futures, which is see 15 year olds to 18, 19, whenever they're ready, kind of age. So there's a year gap in each of those, year crossover in each of those. And young people change when they're ready. So at all times of year, these young people transitioning between hubs
Mm,
because no one said that on the 12th of December every year that a young person is ready to change into a new year group, or that 5 years Christmas break is going to have them ready to step into a new level of schooling. So our transition process takes about 5 weeks, or like we'll start with just maybe a morning a week, and then we'll step into a couple of mornings, then we might do a couple of afternoons, and then we might do a whole day, and then we'll have chats and we'll do the whole
Mm.
week, and all of a sudden they're there forever. So it's a really gentle process. And again, there's no year groups. So it's about that young person. So I guess what we've done
Mm.
at GVL is really focused on the young people being the core of how they're moving, not just in their hub, but across the whole school. And I think that's probably helped guides to see their role in helping the development of a young person rather than just we've got them for this time period.
Yeah.
Mm.
Talk about thinking outside the box. It sounds like even though you've dropped the name Montessori, the word Montessori from the
Yeah,
name,
yeah,
you're really living the essence of Montessori in many ways that many Montessori schools don't. Many Montessori schools struggle with this tension between preserving those principles that have been passed down that are a century old and then adapting to contemporary realities. It
yeah.
sounds like you've done that really skillfully.
Yeah, I think Maria, if she was sitting on the sofa next to me at the moment, she'd be excited to see
Mm.
how we can help young people have personalized learning experiences through the use of technology and through the use of AI. I think she'd be excited and curious to explore how does this AI help a guide be more of an observer and help the guide to just that gentle, I call it like this kind of massaging a young person forward into where coaching and helping them to see their pathway forward and helping like, I truly believe our job at GVL is to help every young person find their rabbit hole and to dig as deeply as they want to in that rabbit hole. And I think Maria would really like that. I think that's the way she would want to see education in 2026 as being, and using the tools to help that happen in order for the guide to be more relational and more human and more able to sit and alongside a young person and help them over their challenges.
Mm.
And if that's what technology's doing, then it's the right tool for the job.
Mm. Do you think there are misconceptions about Montessori education that are holding some schools back today?
Oh, maybe. Is it the schools that's holding back, or is it the community that's holding it back? Like, do we as a community around a Montessori, like, do we as a community feel like Montessori is just kids doing whatever they want whenever they want, which was probably a misconception of mine. Um, just one thing I do love about Montessori is, and I call it the tight, loose, tight, is that our planning is really, really tight, right? We know what a young person needs to achieve. We know what curriculum benchmarks are required, but we do the planning, then it looks really loose in the classroom, in the learning space. It looks so individualized and so loose. And then underneath it, we have that tight, the word, I don't want to use the word assessment, the word acknowledgement of a young person's skill development and that acknowledgement and recording and observing of those skills is nice and tight.
Mm.
So I think that if the community were to see that's what we're doing, like the minute I say, when people go, oh, but your kids, you don't do exams and you don't do assessments and you don't do homework, like, how do you know that they're still achieving benchmarks? Well, we do PAT testing twice a year, which is actually more than NAPLAN testing. And we allow young people, we see their growth and we tinker underneath to ensure that they're developing their strengths, they're acknowledging their challenges, but they're also developing their interests.
Mm. So, how do you communicate the value of Montessori education to modern parents who may
Yeah.
not understand it?
Yeah. I think
How do you
probably
communicate
one
that
of the
philosophy?
keys to that for us is is our huddle system. So we have huddles every 5 weeks. Um, a huddle is parents, guides, young people meeting every 5 weeks to set goals and to talk about success and to talk about challenges for that previous 5 weeks and to show some of their learning. So that in its core is that the beginning of the tight list tight of what do we need to do to support that young person. And that helps our parents to see that while it looks like their young person's coming home and saying, oh, I've done nothing, there's actually purpose to what we're doing. The projects we create for young people to do are a result of us capturing all the data around what young people are interested in and turning that into design thinking, structured, problem solving, authentic learning experiences. So, because parents are part of that learning huddle and part of that conversation and part of their young person's experiences, they see that what we're doing is actually helping their young people to grow in a happy way and to be
Mm,
happy and productive, which is something that Peter talks about. We want our young people to be happy and productive. So I think by them being part of it, it's helping to get rid of that headspace that it doesn't that we just hang out all day.
mm.
Mm.
So AI is controversial in Montessori circles, to say the
Yeah,
least.
yeah.
How do you personally reconcile the use of AI with Montessori principles?
Yeah, right. It's a great, and I think it's not just Montessori we're struggling with at the moment. I think it's education in general, because I think if we think back on it, every time a new big technology lands in education, we try and push back against it. So like, are we like if we think about when the ball, let's go kind of step backwards. When the laptop came out, oh, kids aren't going to be able to handwrite anymore. And yes, there's controversy around that at the moment. I get that, but is it just us holding on to what we know and trying to control what we know rather than letting ourselves step into what possibly could be and what might be? Are we just trying to protect the education that we experienced without thinking about the learning that the young people need to experience for their future? And I think so it's a bit of a mindset there. In terms of AI, for me, there was a bit of a moment where I had a bit of a aha, and that would have been in about 2024. I've been playing with AI since ChatGPT and Midjourney, which is an image one, popped onto the scene about November 22. And I'd been using it for my own admin work and within schools context, how could we use it for admin? And then I created, no, I had this experience where we had to send out, I had to send out an email to parents about not paying their fees. And I hate that stuff because it's not me. It's not why I'm on this earth, but it was part of my job. So I had to do that. And I felt horrible that I had to write, like, all these emails, and it was just draining me. And my autistic self was not coping with this, expectation around me and having to, you know, make others feel uncomfortable. And I created Joan, who's a secretary. She's a bot, an AI bot of ours, who's a secretary who wrote the emails for me. I told her basically the gist of an email, and she wrote that for me. And I then sent that out to parents. I did all of them in a very short amount of time. And it used the tone of voice that we use at GVL, or that I use. It used the language of our strategic plan. And Joan did a great job. And then, just as I sent the last email out, a 13-year-old rocked in who just had her first breakup with her boyfriend, and it was horrific for her. And it was that she needed someone to give her some space and some time and be really relational and just sit with her. Now, if I hadn't have had Joan to help me write those emails, I would not have been able to be there for that young person at that time. So it helped me to realize that AI actually gives me the space to be more human. And our young people at the moment need as many humans around as they can. The world's a pretty scary place if you look at it from the eyes of a teen or a young person. And there's a lot happening. And more than ever, they need humans who can give them time and space and safety. So if AI helps us as one of our tools in our toolkit to give that time and space, I'm all for it.
Mm,
So I know that there's educators everywhere who sit night after night doing all their preparation. They're exhausted when they get to school the next day. It's hard for them to give what they need to give, but they still want to, because remember, we're all
mm,
in it to help young people. So if using AI to help us do our planning in a good way, helps us to be more relational, I'm all for it.
mm,
We also have AI textbooks, I think is a word that I've settled well with. So our whole literacy and numeracy for year 7 to 10 comes out of an AI bot that has a young person's individual learning capabilities and capacities, so they're PAT testing in it. It has a whole year 7 to 10 English program in it, and it
Mm,
has Australian content and links out to Australian resources in it. So when a young person types their name and the week of the like term 2, week 3, it will give them 3 hours worth of English work to do, and it'll give them three options. They can then say, hey, this week I want to do something that's really anime focused, and it will give that work in their area of interest.
mm,
So that then makes the guide the person who sits and helps them with the work. The guide really becomes the coach in this model. And that is
mm,
way more relational and way more supportive for young people than opening to page 10 on the textbook or, more of a structured program. It 100% personalizes what the young people are doing. And each one of our guides in the senior space has 12 young people that they are the school mum for, if you like, or the school dad.
mm,
And they work with them and they support them each week to access the AI, get the work, and then start doing the learning behind it. So
mm,
for me, then, over and over, I see this AI as being a way to give our guides, more relational energy, more time and space to be there alongside the young people.
mm. I love that perspective that AI helps me be more human
Yeah,
with students.
yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a mirror. If we use it to make ourselves more human, it becomes more human.
So that's really I guess the distinguishing
Yeah,
characteristic that you use
yeah,
to choose which AI you will use to support Montessori philosophy
yeah,
rather than those
absolutely.
that,
We
could
even made
contradict it.
we even made Maria Montessori into a little AI bot
Yeah.
so that we can ask her what would Maria do situation, which was a bit of fun. And I think that's where I came to understand her headspace a little bit more. We found as many resources as we could online and different books of hers and things like that, and put them all as a knowledge base,
Mm,
and yeah, stepped into from there.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So you talked about Joan.
Yep.
What are some other practical ways that you've
Yeah.
introduced AI into the functioning of the school?
Yeah. So in terms of admin, we have Joan, we have Barry. So Barry's the bus guy. So in Victoria, in order to have school buses, you need to be bus operators these days. I am not a bus operator. I have no knowledge about buses, but it was part of my job load. So all the policy work and all the documentation around buses are with Barry. So if ever I need to ask anything, because I'm stressing out because, oh my gosh, God forbid there was an accident or something like that, Barry has all that content for me. We have a grant writer. So I've created an app that helps us to write grants. We just did a big building project with the BGA Building Grant Authority, and she's Gail the grant writer. So Gail helps me with all the work around that so that I understand. And I just keep adding up new documentation
Mm,
into Gail to build out her knowledge and to refine it. So rather than having one big bot, I have lots of little ones. It's like our team. So
mm,
there's the logistics team and the policy team and the whatever. Um, we also have, what else do I use a lot? Oh, Parker. Parker, the Pathway Finder. So Parker is an app for our, say, Year 9, Year 10 students. And when they have a career that they're interested in, so we offer the VCEVM, so a vocational education certificate for senior students. And as part of that, they need to go out and do vet studies. So we don't offer vet studies. You know how some schools will run a vet program from their school. We don't do that. We encourage our young people to be part of the world and to
mm,
go to a TAFE or out to a vet space to do that. So Parker, they might go, I'm interested in hairdressing, and Parker will tell them all the courses they could join within a 1.5 hour radius around Gisborne, what
mm,
career pathways are in there. So what are the post year 12 studies you might do, where they might be able to do work experience, because that's part of that journey as well. So Parker's basically doing the role of a careers counselor, but then the huddle person will sit, so their huddle coach will then sit with them and go through that in a,
mm,
a more relational space.
Mm,
So we also have Alfie. So Alfie is a curriculum writer. So Alfie, if a guide types like fishing into Alfie, they'll get a 9 week structure, design thinking flow of learning mapped to ACARA outcomes, Montessori outcomes,
mm,
our own capabilities, gives a driving question, resources that are needed, people in the community that we could tap into, places we could go to for an off-site visit, because we like to get our young people off-site as much as possible,
mm,
because learning happens all around. And so it basically does the framework. And for me, this is gold because it helps our people who are not educator trained to sit with a VIT person and understand how this space works. So it's a little bit of a good coach for them as well. What else have we got? Policy writers. So I've got all our policies in one to help
mm,
understand how to use that as well. So if young people are, if our guides are a little bit concerned about a policy aspect, they can ask a question to that and it'll give that
mm.
to them as well.
How do younger students use AI in ways that support
Yeah,
independence and curiosity
yeah,
and deep
right.
thinking?
Yeah. So in our foundation to two space, we don't, it's more of a guide used and we might. So one day I was out in the kindergarten with Peter and we we're hanging out in the, sorry, little kids there at playground. And there was a caterpillar on a tree. And the kids are like, what's that? And of course, my first instinct is, whoa, don't touch the caterpillar, it might bite you. And we're like, well, let's take a photo of it and find out what it is, right? So we took a photo of it. We put that into first of all Google Images to find out what it was, and we did this on a phone with all the kids sitting around us in the yard as a an ad hoc learning experience. And then we said, right, let's ask ChatGPT what it's about. So we popped the name of that into ChatGPT, and it came back in a language that we knew wasn't going to work for little kids. So we said, oh, talk to us like a 4-year-old. So it did, and it explained that. And then we put it on speaker so it could read
Mm,
it to the young people. So all of a sudden they were seeing that there is this space I can go to find out information.
mm,
So I guess that's kind of like how we use it in the younger space. Our educators use it so that they've got more time to be on the ground with the young people, but our young people know that it's a tool that we can access to get information, but also we have to double check on it. We're always clear with our young people that you never stop on the first response. You always keep going. You try and break it. You try and force it. So then once we step into our year 3 to 6, we use Google Gemini and Copilot in Microsoft because we feel that's probably an easier. And they might do things like, well, I love this one. They spoke using the voice, spoke into Copilot to explain their most mythical character, creature that they would ever like to see. So they explain, the unit, of course, there was unicorns with wings and rainbow horns and all that sort of stuff, right? And then the AI made that image for them. We printed it, they stuck it in their books, and it became their creative writing kind of inspiration for them. They use it to explore like Google stuff, research stuff, again, double checking that it's correct or not. So Google Gemini, because we have Google Workspace for education, that's a little bit of a safer space, and Copilot is a little bit safer within Microsoft as well. So they're starting to use it. We also use Canva a lot, so enabling them to use some of the AI stuff in Canva helps them as well. And then,
mm,
so it's an alongside, it's a research tool. The whole time we just want AI to be a tool. It's just
mm,
one of the other things they use for their day. And then when they head into senior space, it's our textbook, it's more of our tutor and our coach, and we kind of expect them to use it. I won't say
mm,
it's been easy. We have had pushback from young people. Our people have very loud voices, and that's exactly how we want it. So we've had concerns about, is AI an environmentally sustainable tool? So we've explored that. We have young people who feel that they don't want to be taught by AI. Well, that's fine. If you do want to use something else, well, by all means do that. But let's explore why you feel uncomfortable with that. So trying to turn it into a conversation. But we also know that this AI world is not going to go away. right? We're in the middle of that exponential curve and change is just getting quicker and quicker. And I
Mm,
know I want our young people to be able to adapt to change and know and grow with AI. So AI is kind of like a literacy for now. We don't see it as a literacy for the future. It's actually something they need to know now. So, and when you look at it that way, it changes as well. So by the time they get to leaving us, they've actually got in their back pocket really solid skills on questioning, being discerning around when I use AI, being discerning about which AI tool I use for what, being
mm,
discerning about when it's appropriate to and when it's not appropriate to, being discerning around the ethics around AI. So, we're all seeing a lot in the world at the moment around the war in the Middle East. How much of that is actually real? Let's stop and think about the AI videos that are coming out of that. How can we check this stuff? So yeah, that's sort of like our continuum, if you like, of
mm.
how we slowly introduce it.
So, what guardrails or principles guide the ethical use at
Yeah,
GVL?
so true. I see lots of schools creating ethical frameworks for AI and assessment frameworks for AI and all the stuffs, right? If you sit and think about it, so if, sorry, go backwards. For me, compliance and policy work is down to the bare minimum of what's the legal requirement for us in
Mm,
order to keep safe, in order to do the right thing. So for me, the legal requirement around the use of AI is the same as our technology policy around the correct use of technology in schools. Like if a person is using technology in the wrong way, if they're on social media when they shouldn't be, if they're using technology to access inappropriate websites, we put a filter on it. If young people are doing wrong things, bullying, cyberbullying, we address it right. And that's what we call the inappropriate use of technology. And we turn their power to use technology at school off. Like it's that sort of stuff. So to me, the correct use of AI comes under that policy. It's not a separate policy in and of itself. It is part of our correct use of technology. And when we talk about it in that sense, it becomes just one of the many tools we use.
mm,
So to me, it's that and it's conversations around it.
mm. Have you seen AI help with things like parent engagement?
We're just about to start doing some work with our parents. We acknowledge that about 40% of our parents will potentially lose their job due to AI. So we want them to be able to use AI well as well and understand. So we have had some parents push back around the use of AI, but once we have articulated, and rightly so, that it's just one of many tools, that it's actually freeing the guides up to be there with the young people and support them, then that concern tends to be alleviated. So we've done workshops with parents and to kind of explain and work with that.
Now, if a Montessori principal with declining enrollments asked you where to start, what would you say are the first three things that they need to look at that you would advise them to look at?
Yeah, I think I'd probably look at their getting a brand new strategic plan that really positions them in the future and doing that strategic work with their community. The community, it's this balance of the community don't decide the strategic plan, but we hear our voice and we start to involve them. Lots of community events, so like our winter solstices and our Easter things, and we have a barbecue every second Friday where at the end of the day we just have a barbie open and people come and have a sausage and a chat at the end of the day. It's that connecting with the community in a human way that I think is key. And then having a look at, how you can take that Montessori curriculum and really talk about the learning and the authentic experiences young people are having through that. Because I feel the community they're going to join a Montessori school want their young people to have a more authentic and relational educational experience. They don't want them moving from classroom to classroom every 50 minutes and squishing themselves into school shoes and uniforms. They do want their young person to be learning about the world. So let's take that curriculum and revisit it and create a space where young people are learning in an authentic way through the Montessori curriculum.
Mm. So, Montessori, I know, was talking about using film, the 35 millimeter film, back in the 30s
Yeah,
when it was an emerging technology. And she
yeah,
even suggested that teachers should take films of things that were
yeah,
too dangerous or too far away or whatever for children to actually experience directly.
yeah, yeah.
So, do you think what role do you think AI and technological change in general could play in the future of Montessori education? What
I
would she
think
say about that if she were here?
I think Maria would really like AI's ability to help us guides become the observers in the classroom more, to take evidence of the learning and to do something with that evidence that personalize learning experiences for young people. So if we can through our we can use AI to capture things that are happening in the classroom in order to help us to plan and to reflect and then help us to be there for the young people. I think Maria would love that. I think she would love that we young people can create their own learning experiences through AI. So our young people can type in, again, our senior students can type in fishing and it'll give an 8-week program for those young people to do in a project. So and that I think she would really like that. It gets them into the real world and gets them helping the community and being part of the community. I think she would be really excited to see that every young person can have a personalized curriculum through the use of AI literacy and numeracy tools such as the one we've got developed at the moment. So I guess that's three ways. It helps us as guides to be more observers. It helps young people to tap into learning that's really authentic using Montessori structures, and it also helps them to personalize their learning.
Mm. Now, I know one project you're focusing a lot on right now is the prison. Do you want to talk a bit
Yeah.
about that, what that involves?
Yeah, we bought the old Castlemaine jail in mid last year. So we're turning it's a jail that was built in 1861. So it's a sandstone, beautiful old building. And at first you think, oh my goodness, a jail, but it's actually got this most beautiful feel inside it. So we're creating a secondary school inside the jail, a part of the jail. The whole jail is a precinct for learning for the whole community. So we have a cafe in there that our young people will be helping to run, and that's very much a community focused cafe with low food miles, all that stuff. We're offering it as a space for workshops for anyone in the community to run workshops, because then our young people can be part of those workshops, connect with the community. We already have an intergenerational play group every week in the jails, so we have people from the elderly care spaces can't be brought in. Little tiny kids play with them, and some of our GVL young people join. So every time we offer a a workshop, it's an opportunity for our young people to connect with the community. So the whole space is a learning precinct, 360 days a year. And then
Mm.
we have a small component of it, which will have up to 200 young people of the age of 11 through to 18 in there. And they'll do their GVL learning, but really connecting with community every time. Castlemaine in itself is this beautiful artisan, musician, cultural town that's an old gold mine town, and
Mm.
it's got a beautiful history. So we're connecting young people to people in the town who can help them to learn and explore their interest areas. It's really exciting. Um, it's it's um, it's a really nice place to be. We're almost like balancing out the way I see it is jails took away the personal identity of the prisoners and the people there, whereas we're giving that to young
Yeah.
people. So we're balancing the juju and the karma of the building. But it's a really cool building, so you'll have to come and visit sometime
Yeah.
in
Oh, I'd love
Victoria.
to.
Yeah, so
What a
cool.
beautiful way to end. Thank you. And
Thank
thank you
you.
for your time, Pip. This was so interesting.
Thanks
And
for having me.
yeah, I look forward to coming down and seeing in person what you're doing
Yeah,
there. It sounds like
me
a really
too.
exciting evolution of Montessori.
Yeah, it definitely is, definitely is. And thank you very much for inviting me along.
All right.
So
Thank you,
good.
everybody. See you next time.